And James, when it's my time, please
Okay.
unmute me.
We're
Yeah,
live
we
on
shall.
So we're also live on YouTube.
Thank you so much for joining. We let people get in as we wait for them. Thank you, Team iCow, for joining. It's about time that we've been waiting all this time to celebrate this important day. Kindly admit them.
So you can stop sharing.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, team. Welcome to today's. I can see people are joining the room. Thank you so much for that. You're keeping time. This has been our long-awaited day, and it is here with us today. I can see Hilda. Thank you, Nana, for joining. Dorothy, it's good to see you again as we celebrate this important day of soil. Let's give people time to join. It's about that time. Everybody is running around trying to get in. Yeah. So everything is set for today, and we know everyone is eager to knowing what the surprise is, maybe also what it entails to have the World Soil Day. As we wait to know that, let's remain patient. All our microphones will remain muted for the rest of this meeting to avoid noises. As we see people joining in, thank you. Yeah, welcome. I can see Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. You are here. In no time, I know people will fill up the space.
I see the waiting room has people, James. I think we need to take off that restriction.
Yeah, I think I've admitted. Sorry, I didn't want to go that way. Yeah, thank you. Don't worry about that, Sue. It is being sorted out. We are going to, in no time, we shall allow people to have their way in. Yeah, thank you so much. You can see Tony is joining. Thank you so much. Effie, for joining us. Welcome. Yeah, it's now 7 p.m. and I know people are really running in. In the next minute, we are going to start. Thank you, Shakira. I can see you in the room. Thanks for joining us. I'm happy that we are celebrating this World Soil Day together. Welcome, everyone. And I don't think people will be that late today. The room is filling up. Yeah, you're already at 20. Okay, that's good. We expect more than that. And I know people are following us on YouTube. If at all you are thrown out when the number fills up and you are thrown out or somebody takes up your space, please remember to go back to YouTube. You can really follow us on YouTube. We are live there as we progress. Thank you so much for joining. I want to take this opportunity to start. I'm James. For those people who don't know me, I'm James Biwot. I work with iCow as I lead this program of soil advocacy program. And indeed, this is our day as we celebrate the soil. We are passionate about soil. We have been, we've learned that we need to take care of the soil because soil is alive. We have living organisms there, and there is a very, very a great diversity in the soil that we really need to take care of. Here with us, we have Team iCow. We have Primrose. I can see she's in the room. We have Dr. iCow. We have Hesbon, and most of all, our CEO. We have Sue. And I want to take this time also to recognize our soil advocates. Those of you who've joined the room, feel welcome. We really honor you. We have the guest attending and the friends of soil advocates. We recognize you too. Thanks for joining us this evening. Yeah, Sue, kindly
take over. James has just run right out of words. Okay.
Something has come on the screen. I really want to.
That's fine. That's fine, James. I can see a lot of familiar faces in there. I can see that Paul, I can see you behind your fantastic brand is laughing. We all know that iCow really try to put on a professional show, and we hash up little bits here and there, but we all have fun along the way as well. Good to see Jolene in the room. Hi, Jolene. So Jolene is a great fan of our speaker today, and I can actually see that he's already in the room as well. So hello to you, speaker. And we really look forward to getting the show on the road. What normally happens, because of everybody connecting from so many different places, things can be a bit tricky and people fall in and out. We've live streamed today because we've advertised to quite a lot. Our last webinar, we had 60 something odd people in, and we may have more. If we have more than 100, our Zoom place will be blocked, which means that people will have to use the live streaming. So that's why we've done live streaming today. It's the first time we've done it. We've never done it before, and thanks to, and we didn't introduce her, Fiona. So Fiona is in the room. Fiona, do you want to put your hand up? We finally got Generation Z in to help us. We thought we could do so many things by ourselves, and it's been pretty damn chaotic, if you ask me. I mean, you know, I just know one thing: having somebody now taking over our social media, managing social media for us, and managing some of these very, very intricate, tricky things. I mean, we run a technology company, right? You'd think we would get stuff like social media. But honestly, when I think that Steve Jobs worked really hard just to reduce all the bits and pieces on the devices he made to just one button and very intuitive movements so that people got it. Whilst we were trying to get our Facebook streaming on Facebook, whatever it was up, I just thought, how do they even work? How do they make money? For me, anyway, it was complexity, unbelievable. And I just thought, yeah, well, I reckon there's room for people to get in there and compete, man. Just for the oldies like me, something simple, please. But now I'm waffling like James was. I would like to introduce Team iCow so that they can put their hands up. I know they've been introduced, but just so you know who's who in the zoo. Hesbon, maybe we'll start with you. So there's Hesbon. And because we're using, I think you have to move your hand really slowly with these blurred backgrounds. Otherwise, it looks like they fall off when they disappear. Okay, great. Then there's Dr. iCow. That's Dr. Zachary Kimodo. He does all of our work with farmers. You can say hello, Zach, or I don't know if you're unmuted, but maybe, I don't know if Zach's screen looks a little bit frozen.
Good evening, everyone.
There we go. Thank you. And then there's Primrose, who works with customer care. And of course, James. who does all our facilitation, moderation, training, teaching, panicking with us, and now Fiona. And bless Fiona. Fiona joined us. Many of you in the room know Fiona because you were in class with her. So I have great faith in what the iCow community bring to the wider community. An example of somebody who we also found through the process of the education platform was James. James came to us. We met him in class. He was just so passionate and so capable that we hired him whilst he was remote, and we didn't meet him. For the first time we met him was actually a year later, when all the first cohort of soil advocates came to ILRI. And now we found another individual who shows great promise in keeping this community going strong, really, especially where we're focusing on the youth. And I mean, maybe I should even let you introduce yourself, Fiona, say a few words about yourself, your passion, what you do. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Fiona Njeri from Kajiado County. I belong to a youth-oriented, community-based organization in Kajiado, and we do a lot of reforestation activity and also capacity build on climate-smart agriculture. And I am so happy to have graduated from the iCow Soil Advocacy course, and will be joining iCow as well in terms of monthly webinars. So I'm really excited for this process. Thank you. That's me in a nutshell.
Super, super cool. We can all use our emoji buttons and send her some love, send her some things. And please do use your emoji buttons throughout this event. We do keep the mics muted and cameras. I think, I'm not sure if we're controlling cameras, but it just helps everybody stay focused on the business of the day. So I think we're going to get started. I'm going to go to sharing my screen, and we're going to just jump straight in with our program for the day. There we go. And it is World Soil Day today. It's great to have everybody with us. But what does World Soil Day actually mean? When did it start? What is it really about? So Fiona is going to take us through World Soil Day, the things we need to know. Fiona will need sound.
Yeah, sorry, I was quite unmuted. But so World Soil Day is a campaign that is aimed towards raising awareness on the importance and relationship between soil and water, and achieving sustainable and resilient agri-food systems. So this is a unique global platform that not only celebrates soils, but also empowers and engages citizens around the world to improve soil health. So the background of it is that in 2002, the International Union of Social Sciences suggested that we should have a worldwide day to celebrate soil. And the Kingdom of Thailand and the Global Soil Partnership and FAO, that is the Food and Agriculture Organization, they did get on board to support this. And also it was approved in June 2013. And yeah, they agreed in December 5th, 2014. So that became the very first World Soil Day. So why should we celebrate this day? Why is celebrating soil, or rather soil conservation, important? One, it's very critical for agriculture. So it is when we have healthy soils, we have abundant crops, and that's one of the global challenges we face, that is the food insecurity. It's solved through our healthy soils and abundant crops. You can see the tiny graphics coming in that look so lovely. Secondly is the biodiversity support. So it's biodiversity support. That is it's a bustling community for bacteria and fungi, insects, and more. So celebrating soils means safeguarding biodiversity and ecosystem health. Thirdly, it helps in mitigating climate change. So because they store carbon and they fight the climate change, and also it serves as a water filtration. So it promotes the conservation of soil, clean water, protects soil from soil erosion and contamination. And celebrating soils means safeguarding biodiversity and ecosystem health. It also helps in erosion prevention. So it purifies nature, making sure that our water is as clean as a whistle. So erosion is also not invited in this party. So, and also with the land use planning, it's like soil being the city plan of our nature. So understanding these soil characteristics is the key to a sustainable and thriving future. Seventh point is education. So the World Soil Day is an ultimate classroom where everyone gets a front row seat. So policymakers, farmers, you and me, we are all invited to learn about soil conservation and sustainable land practices. So it's the lesson that keeps on, giving and reminding us that soil isn't just dirt, it is the heartbeat of the earth. So in a nutshell, celebrating World Soil Day is like, throwing a groovy earth party. And it's a constant reminder that our little patch of ground isn't just where we walk, it is where life happens. So I'm raising my glass here, and everyone, I hope you can send us a cheers emoji. Raise our glasses filled with clean water. Thanks to soil, to celebrate World Soil Day, because if we take care of the soil takes care of us. So cheers to the unsung heroes beneath our feet. Happy World Soil Day.
Happy World Soil Day, indeed. Thank you so much for that, Fiona. Indeed, the soil microbes are the unsung heroes. And that actually gives me my lead into what we're going to talk about next, and that is a hero in the making, one of our very own Kenyan heroes. I'm going to just do a brief introduction to our World Soil Day 2023 guest speaker. This is Teddy Kinjanjui. Before he comes on, we're going to do something a little bit naughty, but let me introduce you first to Teddy. So Teddy was born and raised in Kenya, and he carries on the family tradition of eco-friendly stove design and construction. He's directed his father's legacy, the Woodlands 2000 Trust, over the last decade and more, and has contributed greatly to the conservation and enhancement of natural forest regeneration throughout Kenya. His cookwell stoves are so famous that they even have their own website. Now, you might think that that is something not so strange. Most things have websites, but this is different. If you Google up our GCOs around the world, you'll see where people have taken photographs. They've got these GCOs in some of the most unexpected places. I think he has got, if you look on the website, there are GCOs in boats, in speedboats, on ships, beside rivers, up mountains, on rocks, in homes, in Poland, in Holland, in Malawi, in Sudan. His GCOs are everywhere. So he's making quite a global impression. We found out yesterday that our families share something. Aside from our mixed heritage, we both have an individual born on World Soil Day. So I think that is just so special. So my son and Teddy's sister share this very, very special day. So Teddy, you can't speak at the moment, but please do pass on birthday wishes from myself and from Team iCow to your sister. And I know you're going to be itching to go party after your presentation. Now, the thing that we're doing, which is a little bit naughty, and I might get into trouble, is I may get into trouble with BBC, where I'm about to do next, but let's see. We're so proud to see that David Attenborough picked up on Teddy's work. And we actually managed to hack it onto YouTube in a kind of way. So I'm going to play it. I did get emails from BBC saying, but to be fair, sharing the story of one of our giants in conservation is really worth whatever is coming, right? Gulp. So here goes.
Like much of the world, Kenya is losing thousands of native trees annually, ones that local people rely on for so much, especially fuel.
So we cannot see the screen.
But here, people have come up with an ingenious way.
You can't see the screen.
Yes.
You've not changed the screen.
What we're going to do is we're going to go back. I'm going to share screens again. Are my frogs bothering you? Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see the screen now.
Much of the world, Kenya is losing thousands of native trees annually, ones that local people rely on for so much, especially fuel. But here, people have come up with an ingenious way to reverse some of that loss around them. At a factory in the outskirts of Nairobi, workers collect and sort waste charcoal dust. Seeds of carefully selected native trees are mixed with the dust. This carbon coat will protect the seeds from hungry animals until the rains arrive. These are seed balls. In the village of Nairobi, acacia trees are becoming scarce, cut down by previous generations to make charcoal. But the students of this school make forest restoration child's play. In the dissolving tar dust will give each little seed a good start. If only a handful of these seeds grow into a tree, the effort has been well worth it. Every mature acacia tree can itself produce thousands of seeds a year. 13 million seed balls have been distributed in Kenya alone. The methods by which they are dispersed are ever more inventive, to say the least. This technique is being repeated around the globe. Seedball making workshops. People are choosing seeds of local native plants, giving them a little initial help, and bringing some wild plants back into the world around them.
There
Are you
we
a course
go.
creator, coach, or consultant? Do
Whoops-a-daisy.
not make a course or ebook before you see this.
Whoops-a-daisy.
Find out.
There we go. So, Teddy, can we have Teddy on screen, please? And can everybody give Teddy a big round of applause? You can do it with your emojis for all that fantastic work.
Hi, Sue. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we can
yes.
hear you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you very much for having me talk this evening. This is very exciting and very nice to see so many familiar faces and, of course, meet all the new people who are so interested in soil out there.
Great. Super to see you. Where are you?
I'm at home in Nairobi.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I think, you know, when I watched that video and I saw all those kids there with the catapults, I now know why there are all those catapults for sale all the way up the road when you're driving past, you know, Emali and the Makueni area. I'm sure that you've got a little business there making catapults for kids, haven't you?
Yeah, all sorts. It's actually a very old business that we sort of adapted the seed balls to a personal childhood pastime of my own, which I love those catapults. So it's lovely to see them come together with seed balls, of course.
Perfect. Teddy, I'm going to put your presentation on now. So I'm going to share screen again and go straight to your presentation, and then you can just talk us through it. Is that okay?
Great. Yeah, perfect.
There we go.
Cool, thanks. So I'll just ask you to go to the next slide, and then I'll just talk over what's happening in the background. So I'll sort of start off with the basic history behind the Seedballs program that we've been doing. This began in 2016 with an old friend of mine called Elson Karstad, who runs Chardas Limited. They were one of the first briquetting companies in Kenya. I'm sure most people have seen in the markets where they sell charcoal, there's always a big pile of waste dust that's left over. What happens is about 10% of all of the charcoal that comes into the cities, when they're unloading it and repacking it for sale, it breaks down into dust that's unusable in a stove. So those piles of dust just were piling up more and more and more. And before the briquetting industry started in Kenya, most of it would either be dumped or just sit there and blow down the street, get in people's eyes, what have you. So the co-founder of Seedballs Kenya, Elson, he'd been turning this dust into like new charcoal, sort of, so to speak, these compressed briquettes. And being a very good inventor, he always has all sorts of fun things he's invented, and, you know, a solar-powered fan and this, that, the other. We'd been very much involved in forestry through our family business. What led us into looking into why would we even get into planting trees was our business Cookswell Jikos that you were saying, that we've been able to get Jikos to the far ends of the earth. We make these small safari ovens for baking bread, roasting meat, making pizza, and then all sorts of other stoves. A lot of them for businesses that would be buying charcoal from a market stall like this in the photo. And since our stoves are using charcoal, we'd always thought that even with just efficiency, you know, if that motorbike in the picture there, if it can suddenly be twice as efficient, the person will drive it that much more. And we always sort of realized that with being a stove maker, that say, you know, suddenly you have this really nice stove that's easy to use and it's cheaper to use. You know, maybe you start heating up water to have a bath on a cold day when you didn't used to do that before. Or, you know, there's a suppressed energy demand that when efficiency comes into play, like with, you know, solar lighting, it's easy to leave the lights on if it's, you know, free energy from the sun versus when you're paying a bill. So that in mind led us into thinking about how do we actually grow a bag of charcoal? You know, what's the whole agronomics behind being a charcoal farmer? Mukilimo ya maka. And so, you know, we went to Kenya Forest Service. This was back in the 90s, the agricultural department, the Ministry of Energy, and asked everyone, you know, from these dryland indigenous acacia trees, like the ones that people are mostly selecting to cut down for charcoal, because they have such high quality wood and it burns really well, good smell, all of that. How do you grow one of those? How long does it take? What are the processes in doing it? And that wasn't really known at the time, because a lot of the forestry practices typically are the old school sort of colonial forestry, where it's in the highlands, you know, monocrop plantations, straight lines of cypress, pine, eucalyptus. So when you're looking into how do you actually grow an acacia xanthofolia tree in Kajiado South, you know, a lot of that knowledge wasn't there. So we started doing all these experiments with how do you grow these indigenous trees. And at the time, you know, some people said if you plant a seedling, you have to dig a hole that's 3 meters by 3 meters by 3 meters in a square. And then other people said, no, you have to do a round hole that's only 1 foot deep. And, you know, there's all these different schools of thought on what's the perfect way to plant and grow a tree. Chicken manure, goat manure, you know, you have to, you know, all this back and forth. So we started doing all of these trials with my family on a bit of land that we have out near Kajiado, near Isinya. And just looking into how do you actually grow a bag of charcoal? What are all the inputs? How long does it take? Do you fence? Do you not? Is it chicken manure? Is it goat manure? What species of trees do you use? So we'd been doing that from the early 2000s with the Carnivore restaurant, because of course they used a lot of charcoal for their barbecue. And we're very interested also in the long-term sustainability. How do you grow charcoal sustainably? This led us into finding out after about 10, 15 years, basically, if you do the traditional method of growing trees, it costs about 100 to 150 shillings per seedling over 10 years. And then you can start cutting the branches off to make charcoal rather than cutting the whole tree down. So we developed kilns for making charcoal with using branches without cutting the actual tree down, and started branching out, so to speak, into doing some tree planting contracts for people. So, you know, Sue would have a couple acres of land behind the park and say, could you guys plant, you know, 1,000 seedlings on it for us? So that's what led us to this sort of light bulb moment of doing the seed balls. And I'd had a planting contract in Athi River somewhere near the highway. And we were on one side of the road, you know, digging the holes, little seedlings in plastic bags or 30 shillings each. We were planting during the rains. So I remember the car was stuck in the mud trying to get the seedlings to the site. And there are all these logistical challenges that I'm sure most people on the group have faced when you're doing tree planting, especially off farm if it's somewhere far away. While we were doing that, I was looking on the side of the road and I could see the guys from the highway authority were busy slashing the grass. And not only were they cutting the grass, they were also cutting the same types of trees, little small seedlings of them that were growing up basically like weeds on the side of the road, 2 meters away from where we were struggling to dig holes and plant the same type of tree, which of course got me thinking, you know, wait a minute, these trees are growing for free on the side of the road. Turns out a lot of those ones come from the sand lorries that take building sand for the construction industry. And in that river sand, there's seeds. And as they're driving down the highway, they blow off in the wind. And you'll see in a lot of the areas where they sell building sand, certain types of acacias that you usually find only by rivers. So that sort of seed dispersal mechanism, plus also looking around landscapes and thinking, you know, who planted all of these trees we've been chopping down for the last 100 years to begin with? You know, it's all seed-based restoration. So if you could go to the next slide.
And as I go there, if any of you have questions, please do put them into the chat. We will do a quick question and answer session with Teddy at the end of his presentation. So just write them into the chat and Fiona will go through them and bring them to Teddy after this.
So that led us into thinking about how do you actually protect, how do you grow trees directly from seeds? So as you can see on the screen, there are two sort of options here. The one on the left is a traditional method. For a lot of indigenous dryland trees in Kenya, they actually rely on establishing a very strong root system in order to survive browsing from goats and camels and what have you, and droughts, especially in arid areas. So one of the things we've noticed over the years when planting from seedlings in plastic bags, there's a lot of plastic bag waste when you're doing 10,000 seedlings at once, 10,000 plastic bags usually. B, a lot of the seedlings would face transplant shock. If they were mishandled badly, they might die off prematurely. And C is also very expensive. As you can imagine, one little small bag seedling is 20, 30 shillings, plus then the transport cost. And that's what really was adding up when we were trying to do planting contracts on people who were far away from where the nurseries were. And that got us into looking into, just when traveling around, you'd find little natural wild seedlings. If you're transplanting them, you'll dig down into the soil and you'll just keep digging and you'll keep digging. And you're thinking you don't want to break the root of this little 1 inch tall, special whatever acacia that you're trying to like put in a seedling bag. And you realize these things are sometimes 3, 4, 5 times the size underground than they are above ground. And especially at those key sort of early stages of its growth, having that strong root system to be able to bounce back from any of those stresses is very key. If you could do the next slide. So those are some of the things that sort of got us into thinking about, how then can we just replicate what is already happening in nature, which is seeds are being dispersed, whether by birds or baboons or elephants or whatever it is. And new trees are growing, because there's also this interesting aspect that with being involved in cook stoves for so many years, in the mid-'80s, I remember, my dad was telling me when he'd go to these cook stove conferences, everyone swore that by the year 2000, there wouldn't be any firewood or charcoal left in Kenya. And then the same thing sort of happened again in 2000 for today kind of thing. So as much pressure as there has been on a lot of these landscapes, there was still natural regeneration happening, because otherwise we would have finished all of the trees. There are new ones coming up by themselves in many parts of the country, to the point of the highway authorities spending millions of shillings chopping down millions of small seedlings on the sides of the roads, which you understand the ones right now by the road you don't want to cut down, but there are many that grow on the edge of the roads towards the fences. And they get cut down every year, and these are all volunteers that are growing up from seeds. So that got us very excited about it. So we went and bought a whole bunch of indigenous tree seeds from KEFRI, the Kenya Forest Research Institute, and they provide certified seeds of all sorts of different trees. So we got the top 10 different acacia trees that people typically target for charcoal production. We went out to the little test plot in Isinya and spread them all out. And that year, the rains completely failed in that particular area. So then what we noticed was almost all of those seeds got eaten by squirrels and guinea fowls and birds and mice, because of course, many indigenous seeds are also food for lots of different animals. So that led us to looking at, there's sort of two options. You can either overseed, so you put out so much seed that the squirrels can't eat it all, then that's very expensive, of course, and quite impractical. Or coat the seed with something that squirrels don't eat or birds don't eat. So what we settled on with our co-founder Elson was using this waste charcoal dust, because on one hand, biochar, which I'll get into a bit more and many of you may have heard of, has very interesting properties for soil. By nature of charcoal and charcoal dust sort of being a sponge, it's able to, withhold a little bit more moisture and nutrients in the areas where it's applied. The other end, of course, was that if we were using this waste charcoal from all the market vendors in Nairobi, using the leftover, the 10% that doesn't make it into the stoves, to coat the same types of seeds and send them back to these same landscapes where the charcoal is coming from, that's a real win-win situation all around from a whole sort of circular economy perspective. How we settled on the different species was actually remarkably simple. We just sort of said, let's just work backwards on whatever Sue they're cutting in your backyard, grow more of the same type of tree. Wherever you live, Fiona, if you see people chopping whatever this acacia gerardii, and they're overexploiting that particular type of tree that's naturally growing in the wild in those areas from seed, but is facing pressure from people overexploiting it, those are the types of trees that we have to grow more of, because that shows those trees have value already to people in those areas, enough that they're bothering to chop them down and sell them. They also have extra value, of course, with things like erosion control and bee forage and biomedicines and what have you. So that helped us with sort of figuring out which types of trees we'd work with. Our particular focus was very much for arid and semi-arid areas, being usually the sort of orphan and restoration projects. When you look at a lot of forestry and tree planting projects, are typically not in pastoral or dryland parts of Kenya, even though those are the places where the majority of charcoal is coming from, is the rangelands. And seeds and direct seed distribution really simplifies a lot of the logistics behind it. Because in some areas where water is a big stress, to expect someone to carry a mutungi of water on their back for 5 kilometers to water a seedling is a bit of a big ask. It's a lot easier to be able to seed the same species of trees that were cut down and wait for the rains and just do that rather than try and artificially water stuff. One of the big things we did learn, though, in some of these arid areas was that actually loss of trees weren't the biggest issue. One of the overriding issues was loss of grasslands, and particularly the loss of palatable species of grasses and forbs and wildflowers. Because, of course, if somewhere is grazed excessively, the most tasty of all of those different pasture species, highest protein content, what have you, those are the ones that go missing first or don't have a chance to reseed. So in a lot of communities where we're doing seed balls and charcoal making areas, people also requested grasses, and the grasses has been a very interesting side of seed ball application, and we're now diversifying into trying to get more of these nitrogen fixing legumes and wildflowers from different ecoregions of Kenya. So if anyone wants to discuss more of that on the side, please definitely send us a message. If you could go to the next slide, please. So once we'd figured out how to make the seed balls and how to coat the seed balls and what types of trees and grasses to put in the seed balls, we started thinking about what's the best way to distribute the seed balls. So what the ideal sort of case would be is when you can piggyback on existing logistics. So if you're going to do a soil test in, say, this photo in the top left of the screen where someone's been clearing land for doing agriculture, would you be able to take a small packet of the appropriate species of trees and discuss with that landowner about planting and growing trees along a fence line? If one is already going to some of these areas, or we've had great partnerships with hikers, people going out cycling, conservation, conservancy rangers, if they're on patrol looking for illegal charcoal making sites, not only can they bust the illegal logging, but they'll have the right type of seeds in the vehicle or aircraft even, and drop them in those areas that have been recently degraded. As you can see in the bottom right corner, this is one of our sort of, really ideal sort of areas to work with seed balls, is growing the same type of tree that was cut down where it was made into charcoal. That, from a soil perspective, is very interesting because usually the charcoal kiln burns at a high temperature for a long period of time, and it sort of cauterizes the soil in a way, and you'll find those patches can take many seasons to recover, if they even recover to the original levels of biodiversity in those areas, without some sort of intervention from the landowners or land managers. Typically what you see in these charcoal making sites is, of course, pioneer invasive species, things like, the Sodom apple and datura. Those come back first in some ecosystems, or other unwanted ones. And so if you can, get in there before those other ones come in and not only replace the same trees, but also the local grasses in those areas, that's somewhere that seed balls really work well. So if anyone knows places where there's been a lot of illegal or legal charcoal making and people want to rehabilitate the landscapes, this is something that we've found is a very interesting particular aspect to the charcoal trade as well. Just from, it never looks like a lot of land, any of those one charcoal making areas, but when you start counting them in somewhere like Narok South or, Kajiado West, you end up finding that it's a few thousand acres in total that have now been degraded from this high heat treatment that will take years to recover. So that's one of the places we really try and work with. How do you get people who might be going to somewhere like this, even the bodas, or charcoal people who are selling it? We've been able to work with a few of them that when they're going to get charcoal from these areas, they'll take some seed balls with them. The industry being a very gray area, it's quite difficult to document correctly, of course, but it is interesting working with some of those people in that industry who do see the long-term potential sustainability of, if you want charcoal, just grow more trees. And many of them are very happy to contribute to growing more trees if it's something that's within their realm of, you know, ability, time, and cost-wise. If you could go to the next slide. So that kind of explains it all in a little cycle. So as you can see up there, charcoal's made, transported into the towns. We collect all of the charcoal dust, use that to coat the different certified seeds that we get from Kefri. And then through so many amazing partners from all walks of life, many of them are actually here. Thank you for joining. Hi, everybody. People distribute the same type of tree seeds back into the areas where degradation has been happening, which sadly is the majority of landscapes. I think that's the last one. Is there one more? There might be one more.
One more there.
Oh yeah, so then this is sort of the overview of the entire company. So the Seedballs is one of our programs from Cookswell GECOs. Cookswell GECOs, we mostly focus on, of course, the stoves, the end user, the ovens, the barbecues, what have you, but also the charcoal making kilns, which have gained a lot of popularity with people using them to make biochar and wood vinegar in farming and applying through the compost. And then, of course, the seed ball side of it. And so for, you know, the foreseeable future, as far as you can tell, most people in Kenya are going to eat nyama choma when they get a chance on a weekend. And if we're going to be using charcoal to make nyama choma, let it be sustainable. And that is beyond just the trees. It's also the grasses in those rangelands for all that livestock, what those are doing to reduce erosion. Interesting fact with some of the grass, there's some that live longer than the common acacia trees you'll see in a landscape. So you might be looking at a big umbrella-shaped acacia that's 40 years old, but you might be standing on a tuft of grass that's 60 years old. And it's just one of those things to think about when, you know, you're looking at landscapes and trying to appreciate everything from, as you know, top to underground, I suppose.
Yeah, wow. Teddy, that's a lot to take in. That's a lot of information. I have so many questions going through my mind. We're going to take about 5 questions because I know that you have a party to attend. And
it's okay.
Okay, great. So Fiona, if you will maybe bring those questions to Teddy, and I will, after the third one, I will ask a couple of questions too. Go ahead, Fiona.
Yeah, as Fiona prepares to ask question, I want to also recognize the people following us on YouTube Live. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for that, James. Fiona? Let me have a look at a question here. Fiona, you can jump in and throw me out just in the interest of time. So there's a question here from Paul Thungu. He says, have you considered soil biology restoration, especially for those areas that have been seriously degraded from burning charcoal, speed up the transition from pioneer conditions to one that can support the trees? You know, Paul, you're thinking exactly the same question that I wanted to ask, because when I'm seeing those seed balls, I'm thinking, what if they had biology in them as well? What if the biology was being put back at the same time? So mycorrhizal fungi, bacteria, all those things that we would make through our compost or vermicompost, and adding that into the seed balls. I'm sure your mind is along that. Tony, Tony's got another question in there. Teddy, can you see the question there? And
I can, yeah, I can see the question. So I'll go through them one at a time from the bottom up.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, yeah. So from soil revolution, yeah, the side of the whole mycorrhizal bacteria we did think about. The issue is at the moment, cost. You want to try and make tree growing as cheap as possible if you're trying to grow millions of trees. And so everything that adds it on a little bit, if it doesn't remarkably change performance, and then also availability. You know, if one wants to buy the 5 types of mycorrhizal soil fungi for 28 counties in Kenya, where do you go and how do you start doing that? So that was a bit of an issue. But in some of those charcoal areas, what seems to happen is, at least on the sides of the kilns where it's been degraded, those seed balls typically seem to do the best compared to the ones in the very middle. An interesting thing, though, that I've heard anecdotally from a lot of farmers, though, is if they cleared their land by using charcoal production as a way to subsidize the cost of removing all of the trees so they're able to start farming, they typically say that what they find is the spots where charcoal had been made is more productive. The maize ears are longer and all of this stuff. And I think that's a function then of the biochar, the leftover charcoal dust in those kilns absorbing whatever synthetic, probably fertilizers a lot of people would be using. For us, the logistics of figuring out which species of mycorrhizal fungi goes to, Turkana, Kwale, Kisumu, and on a daily basis, and are they available? That's especially the availability side of it is where we sort of hit a wall on that side of it. But what a lot of farmers are encouraged to do is, if possible, you have the time and the effort and the money to do it, you can add manure back into those charcoal making areas, and that helps quite a lot. For Fiona Jerry, this is the second question up. How long does the seed ball help reduce seed dormancy? No, actually, that's a very good question. So at the beginning, and when we were typically used to raising acacia trees in a tree nursery, and in a tree nursery, you want to break the dormancy all at the same time. You want all of the tree seedlings to basically be the size for many reasons, ease of counting, transport, whatever. And that's the opposite of what we're thinking of in the wild, because what happens, of course, if you're not in a tree nursery as a seed, sometimes you get rains for a day and a half and then the sun comes out for 3 weeks straight. So if you germinated prematurely and the rains of, especially these days with the weather being so big, there's so many vagaries in it, breaking that inbuilt dormancy means that it's a higher risk for the seed prematurely germinating and then dying off from extreme sun or whatever it is. We also, from the sort of practical aspect, looking at this back to trying to do as much biomimicry of nature as possible, the seeds from so many of these acacia trees, this has been millions of years in evolution for them to know exact what are the right triggers for them to germinate, the humidity, the heat, the amount of rainfall, all of these. And some of the seeds we work with actually can stay dormant for more than in labs. They've done tests on Acacia tortilis over 15 years of zero moisture and still able to germinate. And so for certain types of trees, it is very advantageous for it to spread the dormancy over multiple years. They might have 10% germination year one and then a further 10% every successive year. Other types of trees, specifically usually the Senegalia family of acacias, like the mellifera and the flat-seeded ones, those ones will typically germinate very quickly as soon as they've got any moisture and take that risk, but they sort of produce more seeds from the tree. Grasses also have seed dormancy, and some grasses actually need to be aged for about a year before you even get high germination from them.
Second question was
how long does this?
How long does Seedball take to measure, and what are the indicators compared to natural trees in drought resistance? That's a question from Data Robert.
I'm not sure I understand that last one.
Robert probably can explain on charts. And the other question, does charcoal dust from different trees have an effect on germination rates in terms of pH?
I don't think so. There'd be small variations in charcoal dust from different feedstocks. Charcoal dust from maize cobs is very light and porous. Of course, from rice, it has higher silica but most of those variations are pretty marginal, more or less, I think. From the pH side of it, there's been a lot of studies on biochar actually reduces acidification. Although each seed ball is not coated with that much charcoal dust, so it's only a small sort of amount that goes into that particular spot of soil. While the seedling is very small, an inch tall, that does help, especially with moisture retention around that base of where those roots are going.
I just want to quickly just say that for those of us that are not seeing what's happening on YouTube, we've got a Philip, we see you, who's following from Baringo, Stanley from Bomet, Alice Tanui is in there. There is a question there, or rather a comment from Samuel Musioki, who's saying, so listening to you, I'm convinced that the conventional methods people are being taught to people create dependency and slow the speed at which we could plant the right trees. Conventional, then there's something there that I don't quite understand. But I think that what he's trying to say is that we could all be planting trees the wrong way, and that your knowledge could really help, even with our national tree planting campaigns, to plant trees the right way.
So the thing is, there's no one silver bullet, sadly, in any of these things. The seed balls are just one of the many tools you're going to have in your toolbox. For some people, well, first off, for many species of trees, the seeds cannot stay dormant. They have to either be refrigerated or they rot very quickly. So if you make them into a seed ball, it won't work. Those typically would be fruit trees type of ones. So those ones, there's probably half of the species in Kenya wouldn't work as a seed ball anyway, or they're too big. We did do an April Fool's once about coconut seed balls that we're throwing from an airplane. And people started ordering them. They were like, I want 5 of these. I love it. So I mean, size, of course, for certain things won't work. And then, of course, for many of the more commercial species, of course, you have to grow them from grafted cuttings if you want the same type of fruit that you're expecting typically. So the seed balls for us is, it's just one of the many tools that people should look at, and not only seed balls, direct seeding in general. One of the many tools you can look at for achieving an end goal. And a big thing is always your cost analysis. How much does it cost to carry seedlings up to the top of that hill where there's no water and fence it all off versus, just throwing some seeds out and getting a few to start growing, which then replenishes the seed rain.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that aside from cost and things, we went out on the National Tree Planting Day the other day. We went to 2 different areas. We went to, both of them here around the Ngong area. And when I had the tree that I was going to plant in my hands, I was thinking about the survival of that little seedling. Okay, it was in a little plastic bag. It was a little tree in those that had been brought by the community to be planted. And when I went out and looked at all of the holes that had been dug, I actually was looking to select a hole where the tree was going to get some sunshine, was not going to be planted in a place where it was going to get trodden on or eaten or whatever. And I felt like the tree planting program was planting trees very close together, sometimes in the wrong area. The chances of them even surviving, what are the chances of, because that is a huge investment, okay, from getting the seedlings to that size. My thoughts about the second slide you showed with the roots and the depth to which those little roots go when they are dealing with stresses, and the way they really dig down deep to entrench themselves and survive, coming from a seed bag where they're all circled, that also was happening. And then no compost, no anything, just holes being dug in. So again, just coming back to, do we have any government or any partnership with the relative tree planting? Some of it's being done now by big organizations. I just feel like if there was somewhere people could go to say, what are the right trees for us to plant in this area and why? Because the thinking is just pick up a tree and go and plant it, and you've done some miraculous thing for the environment, where actually it's hit and miss, and probably more miss.
And back to, there's also a lot of times a question of, why those trees? What is their end goal? Because, of course, a lot of people are tree farmers, and you don't want to discourage someone who's thinking about investing in growing trees to use for building a house, 20 years down the line or whatever it is. But then there are also areas where trees shouldn't be grown at all. They're actually, like behind the Aberdares, that's an ancient sort of highland grassland with even specific birds that have evolved to only there, and it's being covered by eucalyptus and grevillea trees. So there's also that sort of nuanced side of ecology, but that always goes back to whose land are you planting it on? What are they doing this for? Why did those trees get cut down to begin with? there are a lot of further questions behind any restoration projects beyond the tools that you use to achieve the end goal. So it's something that we try to remind ourselves also at Seedballs also is, you know, the Seedballs are just one of, you have a djembe, you have a panga, you can use seeds, you can use seedlings. So, you know, people, there are many ways of doing it. One thing that I've sort of recently seen that's quite worrying is mass planting of exotic bamboo, especially along rivers. And you go underneath some of those bamboo plantations, and there's absolutely nothing growing. And when you think about how difficult it would be to remove them, if indeed we do find out that planting all of this East Asian bamboo in areas that never occurred before, it may not have the best outcome, you know, what are we going to do? So again, back to my initial thought of plant what people have been cutting down over the years. For almost everyone in their backyards, there's 20 trees that you should want to learn the names of, learn the uses of, whether it's in your local language or the botanical names. But those trees have proven their worth in those landscapes. That's sometimes the trees that put our grandparents through school, you know, or whatever it is, by chopping them down. So just grow more of the same thing that already grows where you live is sort of our main focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Lydia, for just bringing that to our attention, that KEFRI does species site matching to enable you know what to plant where. They also offer free advisory services on which species to use for what purpose. So there's our go-to for all of us that are planning on planting trees. Don't just pick them up from the roadside, get some good advice around that first.
Very good question. Sorry, can I do one more question from Lydia?
You can, yes.
Yeah, there's a soil seed bank to know the success rate of what we've planted. That's a very good question. Because if you plant an acacia tree where there are other of the same type, you know, how do you tell which was yours? But typically, since the people who buy seed balls from us are a lot of times farmers who are going to plant them in a straight line along the fence, when you have, you know, 20 seedlings coming up of the same type, of the same age in a straight line type of thing, then they'll know those ones are from the seed balls. But what we're seeing in some landscapes that's actually very interesting is the seeds of certain species of trees that occurred there 30, 40 years ago. Just the trees are gone. And especially, you know, central Kenya, bits of Maranga, we've asked, you know, older generations, do you recognize this tree? And shown pictures, and everyone said, oh, there are so many of those things. We chopped them all down for charcoal and replaced everything with, you know, the 5 species of mango, grevillea, you know, avocado, that sort of thing. So in some of those areas, from just the biodiversity standpoint, what typically would happen, again, like with the overgrazing, the trees that have the highest quality wood and charcoal and firewood and fencing, those are the types of trees that typically go missing first. And when people are buying the seed balls, we always really advise them, consult with especially the older generation around you, what used to grow there and what did we rely on for these commercial purposes and are now missing in these landscapes.
Great, great. Before you leave us, I'm going to share a photograph that you actually sent me, and I would love you to tell us a little bit about this. We are looking at World Soil Day, Soils and Water. So tell us about this picture and connect that back to our trees.
Yeah, so this was a very exciting afternoon. We're sort of near Lake Turkana by Loyangalani. And one of the rare times when there was a big, big rainstorm. This was, I think, just after COVID. And it had really just flash flood out of absolutely nowhere. And the river that we had to go back across suddenly became this river you see in front of you. And it occurred to me looking at it like sort of chocolate soup. I wonder how much silt is actually in there. Because I happen to have been reading something about siltation in Lake Turkana in relation to the fisheries health. And so I grabbed a glass and filled it up, let it sit there for 2 hours. I don't take enough pictures of these, but it's something I like to do as much as I can when I'm traveling, is always try and get some river water and let it sit down and see how much is left in there and what sort of stuff is in there. On one hand, I was really shocked thinking, you know, if an inch of that much water is actual topsoil and silt, you know, how, you know, what's going to happen? It will be a desert tomorrow. On the other hand, that area has been receiving erosion and hard rains for time immemorial. The bigger change now is probably the lack of vegetation. But it's fascinating to think how full of soil could that glass be? Was there ever a time where there almost wasn't any soil, or is it half as much as a sort of more natural balance? Definitely from tree and grass cover, one thing you'll see in a huge way, every time the rain stops, I'm sure everyone notices how many small drops continue falling off of a tree long after the rain has stopped. Sometimes even the sun has come out. When you multiply each drop on each leaf, times a bazillion leaves in your neighborhood forest, you can see how that could actually make that river be half as dirty or half as much water all at once. And I think slowing water down and allowing it to infiltrate, especially whether it's just dropping off the leaves of trees or actually flowing down the bark of them into cracks where the roots are. Even old dead trees are very important. The roots have opened up all these channels, and water being able to get down into the underground water tables is a very key thing. But doing this and seeing it visually, especially if you're with a group of friends who maybe don't notice things like this or see it as often, it's very interesting to see the reactions. And you can even, get people to bet, how full is this glass going to be with soil? Is it half full, quarter full? And it's an engaging sort of just quick visual to, put in.
It's also a great experiment for all of our soil advocates to do. I mean, Makueni at the moment, there are areas that are really flooded, and they're seeing this now, and they could actually be doing this experiment and sharing these pictures back to us from around the country, because we'll be able to see then, a lot of that degradation. I'm saying, soil is moving, and that's the best way. And I think this was another picture that you had sent, is shortly afterwards, when everything had settled and dried, this is what, what the land, some of the area looks like. So so important. I mean, that trees and roots and speed of movement of our soils, we really have to take into consideration going forward. And it's eye-opening. And the more we can document it, the more, as citizen scientists, we all start documenting these things, the more visible it becomes.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you very much for having us. And yeah, any other questions, or if you want to find out more about what we do, we're on all the typical social media channels. And otherwise, just send me a message on WhatsApp or email. And we do work with small CBOs and schools. If you have a good cause, basically, or just very keen on growing trees, we get donations from different people every once in a while. And if you're able to provide feedback on where you planted the trees and how they're doing, we can probably send you some kilos of different seed balls for your particular area for you to try out. And again, even if you don't do it from seed balls, just like right now after these rains, I was looking at a gutter near my house, and it's completely filled with 2-inch tall Markhamia lutea seedlings. And I was looking at an event where they're selling the same type of tree seedling for 80 shillings in a plastic bag per seedling. And here I am with 2,000 of these little things growing in a gutter. And it's incredible when you take a moment and start really looking at how much natural tree seed is actually wasted all around you, that with just a little bit of help, just bend over, pick up a handful, drop them in a site that gives them half a fighting chance, you'll grow a tree for free. You don't even have to spend the 1 shilling on a seed ball. But if you want 1 million seed balls, you can also buy them from us.
Awesome. So there you go, guys. That was Teddy Kinjanjui from Seedballs. Thank you very, very much for your extremely informative presentation. We can all give you our reaction through our emojis. We normally keep our microphones and cameras off just to make sure that we can focus on what's being said and avoid lots of noise. But there are people all over the country. There were up to about 50 plus people in this Zoom, and another 12 or more I saw on YouTube, perhaps a few more. Teddy, thank you very much. And Any questions that you have, or if you'd like to reach out to Teddy, if you didn't take any of the contacts that he left on the screen or spoke about, please do reach out to Team iCow, and we'll make sure that we get your information on to Teddy. Okay, and then moving on with our program, we're going on to the next part of what we're doing. And here we go. I'm going to share screens again. This is an interesting thing because I want you guys to get involved, okay? We're going to get all of you involved in some kind of activism. I'm sure that many of you know the lady in the picture, and if you don't, I'll do a quick introduction. She's a great friend of mine. Today, our plan is to allow you all to unleash a little climate activism right here with us, okay? With one of the most formidable regen activists in the world, Dr. Vandana Shiva. Unfortunately, she's not going to be with us live, but one day, and I can promise you this, we will have her live in our community webinar. Dr. Vandana is an Indian scholar, an environmental activist, a food sovereignty advocate, eco-feminist, and anti-globalization author. Based in Delhi, she's written more than 20 books. She's often referred to as the Gandhi of grain for her activism associated with the anti-GMO movement. Vandana has written and spoken extensively about advances in the fields of food and agriculture, intellectual property rights, biodiversity, biotechnology, bioethics, and genetic engineering are among the fields where she's fought through activist campaigns. She's assisted grassroots organizations of the Green Movement in Africa, Asia, Latin America, Ireland, Switzerland, and Austria, with opposition to advances in agricultural development via genetic engineering. I've met her a few times. I've met her in India, I met her in Bhutan, I've met her in Germany, and we've often spoken about a collaboration between iCow and her Navdanya movement in India. And we need to make this happen. Meanwhile, I've borrowed a message from her from when she was giving a soil food webinar called The Importance of Soil Regeneration. Her presentation was half an hour long, so please do go find it on YouTube after this. But there's a question that she answers that's very topical for us regenerative farmers in Kenya today with regards to carbon and climate change and fair and just reward for regenerative farmers. So we're going to go over to her talk. The question that she was addressing was, let me take you to, it's a little clip that I'm taking straight off the video here. The question she was answering to was, can everybody see my screen? James, can you see the screen?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Does it say, how will soil carbon sequestration help mitigate climate change?
No, it hasn't moved.
It doesn't. So, okay, so I think I have to stop and then I've got to link it in again. Okay. Now, does it say that?
Yes.
Perfect. So she's answering this question in this webinar. How will soil carbon sequestration help mitigate climate change?
Is so important for many reasons, because I think what needs repair is the relationship of the human species with other species on the earth. That is what has been broken. We've been made to believe we are separate from other species. We are superior to other species. You know, there's a lot of talk of white superiority, but white superiority builds on human superiority over other species. And anthropocentrism is the basis of racism. Yeah, if you can be racist against other species, you will be racist with people of other colors. You will be haters of women because they're another gender, and the hate carries on. And it's this illusion of superiority and forgetting that we are part of one beautiful earth family, related to each other with the most intimate webs of mutualities and giving and reciprocity. The soil has been a victim of the violence of industrial farming, but it is also the solution to ending this violence. And the reason I wrote soil, not oil, in the lead up to the Copenhagen Summit on climate change is because I realized that first and foremost, we forgot that the soil can give us everything we need, all the plants for the food and the fiber and the housing. We don't have to drill deep and mine 600 million years of fossil fuels, which then is burnt and used in chemical farming. So forgetting the potential of soil to provide for our needs was the first mistake. The second mistake was then being irresponsible with respect to climate change, which comes back and hurts the land with extreme events of extended droughts, extended fires, extended cyclones, extended hurricanes. So climate change at the end of the day, the impact of it is on the ground and on the land and on the soil. But soil can be the place where we repair this broken relationship and repair the broken cycles. Because at the end of it, what's climate change? A buildup of greenhouse gases which don't belong in the atmosphere. They belong in the soil. And how do you bring them back to the soil? By repairing the cycle of carbon, by repairing the cycle of nitrogen. And that means working within those cycles, but doing the extra work of regeneration. I call it returning to the gift economy. Howard called it the law of return. We just have to give back to the earth part of what she produces in terms of organic matter. And the regeneration cycle starts. Everything from being a degenerative, vicious system starts to regenerate. The soil heals. It draws down carbon and nitrogen. A few plants of nitrogen-fixing crops mixed with your cereals, they give you such a non-violent path for nitrogen fixing. You don't have to blast fossil fuels at high temperature to make synthetic fertilizer, which then becomes, the Beirut explosion or the Afghanistan bombs. Yeah, the same process makes explosives and synthetic fertilizers. And so we shouldn't be surprised that the Oklahoma bomb, the Oslo bomb were all fertilizer bombs. So in the soil, it's where regeneration begins. But I would plead with the regenerative community to not slip into carbon trade. Treating carbon as a commodity where the good carbon, the living carbon you have put into the soil with your efforts is equated with dirty carbon of the fossil fuels, the black carbon, and the guys who are polluting take your bit as a credit, and suddenly they're pollution free because of the way the credits work. There's a lot of financialization of this. Of course, we need living economies. And the two things we need in living economies are farmers who practice regeneration should be rewarded by society, not just for the carbon, but for growing health of the planet, for growing health of people. So rather than doing it at the level of carbon reductionism, do it at the level of systems reward. Right now, the farmers who are practicing industrial agriculture are being rewarded by subsidies. $1 billion a year. 700 million is what some people say. Subsidy reward is then what's allowing this carbon, non-renewable carbon to carry on, the dark carbon, the black carbon to carry on. We need new systems, and we need new systems accounting, not carbon trading. The second is I've heard good people talk about how the farmers are earning nothing for the food they grow, and therefore let them at least earn money for the carbon. No, that is unfair. That's accepting food injustice. My sisters and brothers in India are fighting for fair prices. And we need to put the food democracy issue and the food justice issue along with the issue of regeneration and sequestering carbon in the soil. So this is our work to be totally creative, to move from reductionism and monocultures to diversity and regeneration, and start being imaginative about how do you do the science of regenerative systems rather than the reductionist science of mechanistic systems.
how do you do science of and economics of regenerative economics, rather than continue with that reductionist carbon trade and the financialization of one part of the living soil when the soil food web is so much richer.
So
from my
that
life's
was
experience and
our little look at or a little view of Vandana's views around carbon credits. And I can't tell you how much I agree with this, because I honestly feel that it doesn't make sense if we're trying to fix the environment, but we're allowing the good we're doing to be traded for the bad that continues to pollute. Simply doesn't make sense. So we've come up with a little bit of a plan here, something that we want to see. It's an experiment. We want to see if you guys want to join us in a bit of a little bit of activism with Vandana. Okay, now what we're going to do is, we all know how to change our names, right? We all came in and we've got our names in. We go up and we click on our screen and we click on the 3 buttons on the side, and that opens up. We can rename our name, right? What we want to try and do, I'm going to give everybody a minute to try and do, is we're going to rename our name to this. Okay, no to dirty carbon credits. And then I want to take a photograph of everybody who feels that that is a statement they stand by, just to see, you know, to give you an opportunity, as I've said, to take part in activism, even though we can't do it on a global scale. This might give us the ability to actually do it to some degree, to take part and show that we don't stand for it. So it's, I'm going to do it myself here. I'm going to go and rename, and I'm going to go no to dirty carbon credits. I wish we had enough space to go yes to clean.
Meanwhile, if you want to rename, kindly click on participants if you are using your phone, and then go to your name, which is the first one, touch on it, then rename.
I can see it happening slowly. And maybe what we will do as well, just again, in the interest of time, is we will, as you do this, we'll have a look back at the end of our session today and see, rather than try and follow this with time. I can see a lot of people have got it, but for those that haven't, remember, you're going to where you put your name in, and then you are renaming your name to no to dirty carbon credits. And as we're doing this, I've seen there's some information that has just come in over there. Oh, if you're watching on YouTube, dear Jack, I have no idea. Maybe, maybe Generation Z can comment for us. Maybe just write it in the chat. But
Yeah,
I think
they can.
you can write it in the chat. And because we're videoing, we will have it on video. Nice, nice, nice. So keep doing that as we continue with our program, because we are running out of time, running over time a little bit. And the next thing that we're going to be looking at is a spotlight on the iCow soil advocates. And I think that this is why many of you are here today, because I've promised that we have done something that I think is pretty cool for you guys. So we're going to spotlight on the iCow soil advocates, and we're going to start off with The beginnings of this program, where did it actually start? We were sharing a little video today of Dr. Wangari Maathai, and she was telling a story about a little hummingbird that was trying to put out a fire by flying in with drops of water in its beak, and all the other animals were laughing in the forest as the forest was burning. And they were saying, you know, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your time? And the little hummingbird just went backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards, and it just basically, the moral of the story is we all have to do our little bit. If we all do our little bit. So when this program started, it was COVID time, and we were under lockdown, and we had, you know, as Team iCow, our systems were built for farmers over low-end phones. We thought, well, what can we do for people that are actually connected? And then what we did is we came up with the iCow soil advocacy program that we've focused on delivering first and foremost to the border community. And we did this because they had motorbikes, and because they had tablets, and because they were connected, and they were at home on land with their families. So I'm going to play this video. Many of the original and pioneers of this program are actually in the chat today. As we put a spotlight on the soil advocates and the soil advocacy program, we'll start with this short video.
Hi, I'm Sam Mutuku of Green County. Because I come from a semi-arid area, and we have problems with the minimal rainfall. So concerning Mambana production, crop production, we practice the good agricultural practices, but also the soils have been challenging. Because of bad agricultural practices, the soils have been rendered poor. So if I can learn something through this soil advocacy program, it is a very big benefit to me and my community as a whole.
My aim is to get study as a soil advocate so that I can help the community learn on how they can conserve soil around the environment.
Hi guys, this is Kevin from Makwene County. I'm an iCow member, boda rider. I'm so interested in this internship to join this group. I'm also following up about the lessons. I was introduced to this group by Misako, or in other terms, I understand people don't understand it by Misako. Sami Mtuko. I'm very, very much interested to join this group.
Good morning, iCow. I'm Emmanuel Kiriwa from Nandi County. I look forward to train as a soil expert. We want to bring our soils back to life again. Our soils are becoming poorer and poorer. And as a member of this community in Nandi County, I want to be an agent of change.
Hi, member. I'm Stella from County, a boda rider, and also member. The reason why I joined this program was I want to gain more knowledge, to produce more, supply to the community.
to everyone. My name is Charles Kiusia from Makueni County. I'm a farmer. I'm doing irrigation farming of tomatoes and colors. Yes, and I'm also a community-based facilitator on agriculture and tomato value chain and poultry also. And I'm also a community resource volunteer. Thank you. I'm interested in soil health and organic farming.
My name is Dennis. I'm a border rider and a soil advocate.
So I'm going to stop that there. But these were the guys that started this whole thing, like that little hummingbird, who took it to the next level and who created a pathway for others to join. Today, let's see how many soil advocates do you think there are? How many? Let's see some numbers going up in the chat. How many of you have been keeping track of the size of this community? And I know you're all trying to quickly go to WhatsApp to have a quick look, right? How many are in there? How many are in there? Let's see some numbers. Hey, Sally in Zambia. More than 100, says Sammy. Well, let's have a look, because what we have got for you today, let me just, I've got to go back to share screen again. This is actually a very annoying thing, is we've put you all on the map. Every single one of you is now on the iCow website on this map. You can go and find yourself. And if you go onto iCow website, which is iCow.co.ke, you'll see there's a place that says, let's go to the top of the page here. Whoops. Oh, here we go. This is always very tricky here, but we're going to go to the top of the page. We've got find a soil advocate. Forget that picture in the background, it's being changed. That came with the template. But find a soil advocate. There's a photograph of many of those that came to Nairobi that were awarded, and that had where we had the first microbial award ceremony on the African continent. So you're pictured there. Then find your closest iCow soil advocate who might want to find you. Maybe people in your region, maybe you want to find each other. Maybe you want to do what we've been seeing happening with some of the groups already. Across the counties, there are now, as of yesterday, and it's so cool because it's a day before World Soil Day, exactly 100 certified by the iCow system who've come through the education system, certified iCow soil advocates. So I want you to give yourselves a big round of applause, and you can do it in your emojis. I'm going to show you what happens when you click on these things here. So there in Eldoret, there are 7 soil advocates. Who are they? Aha, there's Effie with her certificate, her photograph. There is Faithwell Kimutai, cheer, cheer. There is Stella. Did you guys in Eldoret know that there were so many of you in the area? Do you guys in Meru know that there are so many of you in Meru? Look at that. Who's in Meru? Shadrach Mutegi is in Meru. Angelo Mutegi. Similar name. I wonder, I think we found out you guys weren't related. I know that Tony works also in Nairobi, but Tony's also in Meru, from Meru. And now I'm going to show you something else. So collectively now you can look for each other. And I remember that first day, the first training where the soil advocates in Makueni, actually it was during the ILRI event. They said they won the award for the community award that we had. And they said that they would always be the biggest group. So when we look at the map, guess what we find? That Makueni is leading, okay? Makueni do have, whoops, let me just close that down, the highest number of soil advocates, okay? That little impact of one guy, two guys, three guys, these guys, who not only went through our course, but then went through other courses as well, and even did the Soil Food Web course, and continue to inspire the people around them and bring them into this big group that will spiral and spiral and spiral and reach out in a huge way to the community. That takes me to the next part of this program. First of all, I want to congratulate you all for the incredible work that you're doing. And we're now going to move on to an inspiring story by one of us who's made this happen through collaboration and communication. And if we go down, 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 we see that there are no soil advocates anywhere else on the African continent. So we've got work to do. We know that we've had groups from Uganda who have approached us. We've had groups now in South Africa. So there are things to do. I'm going to stop sharing here. And I'm going to go now to the presentation that is going to be the spotlight on the soil advocates. This is actually, here we go again. Sorry, I had to change because it won't go straight video to whatever this darn technology, but here we go. And we've got a iCow soil advocate speaker who's going to tell us about their journey. But before they go there, I'm going to tell you about what the journey looked like from my perspective. Okay. And why it said one and not two, because this particular individual, and we're talking about Makueni, and you all know that, it's like he has a Siamese twin. They work together all the time. They are community workers together. They are training together, they're learning together, they're always together. You saw them on the motorbikes right in the beginning. Sammy and Charles came in the pioneer group and have continued to lead the largest cohort of soil advocates in any county in the country, and that's hugely commendable. So here is some footage of some of the training that they were doing. That's a soil integrity test. You all can see it. You can see how the community is desperate. It's dry, it's hot. There's not a lot of success going on there. I love that they're reaching a lot of women. You're probably wondering where Sammy is, and Sammy will always tell you he's behind the camera. That's Charles, who's doing the compost making, again, another community group. When these guys came to Nairobi, they won the community award. They took it back home, and they inspired and went village to village, ward to ward, inspiring more of the people in their community to make compost and to look at regenerating their soils that were very barren and very dry. Then Sammy came to Nairobi. The first picture is there. The first time he looked behind a microscope, he was trying to look at it from about 1 foot away. We were saying, no, go closer, go nearer, go nearer. And eventually Sammy managed. And then later on, both he and Kiosia came to Nairobi for the microscopy immersion course. And both of them became certified iCow soil lab technicians, able now to identify soil biology that they see. And they're now preparing to set up a lab, a soil lab in Makueni. So without much ado, there we can see why Makueni is leading in that way. But let's hear it from them. I'm going to stop sharing now again, and we're going to give the microscope to Sammy. And Sammy, I'm sure you're probably there with Kiosia. Take it away. Tell us, how did you do this? What drove you? What were your challenges? And what are your successes? How's it going? Hard to find his name in there. So many people are saying no to dirty carbon. Very cool.
Yeah, they are unmuted and they are speaking. I don't know. We cannot hear them.
Sammy, we can't hear you. We can't
put up your hand for me again.
Maybe what we'll do here, guys, is we will then move on to the next part of the program as Sammy sorts out his audio, and then we will come back to them towards the end. We've got a couple of more things that we want to try and fit into the time of this event, and we're actually running over time. So the next part of the event, we're actually looking at our profile of speakers for next year. So as I mentioned before, Fiona is joining us, and she's going to be taking us through, helping us really, professionalize our webinars. I've promised this community, this growing, fabulous community, a webinar every month, and I failed to deliver about 80% of the time, purely due to overworkload, and I'm sorry for that. But Fiona has jumped in and said, let me help you guys do this. So we are going to have, we've already got speakers planned for January and February for the first quarter of 2023. And Fiona, maybe you want to, I'll start actually just by introducing Dr. James White. Now this guy, those pictures on the right are some of the new stuff that they're finding. So Dr. James White, he's a professor in the Department of Plant Biology at Rutgers University, where he teaches courses that pertain to the biology and ecology of fungi, okay? His research involves evaluating of the function of the plant microbiome, okay? The overall hypothesis and thought of his research is that bacteria and fungi, endophytes, those are those that are inside the plant, of the plant microbiome, function to defend plants from stresses, and they provide nutrients and enhance growth and development of plants. It's what we're being told, it's what we've learned, but now we're actually able to see the mechanisms that work. Recently, and we spoke about this in class, he described the rhizophagy cycle, where microbes alternate between living in the soil and being root dependent, where they're sucked in and attracted in by the root exudates, where they acquire nutrients in the soil, they bring them into the plant, where they're extracted in the roots by the roots acting on them with hyper oxidization. The rhizophagy cycle may be an important mechanism that enables plants to obtain nutrients also from symbiotic microbes. In a nutshell, for those of you that are in this webinar that have not taken our course, some of the words you might not understand, but what we're saying is we used to think roots used to just go out there and collect water and fertilizer and other things for plants. And what we're realizing now is that is not the case. There is the entire soil microbiome that is in there that is working with the plants. In fact, the same way you're farming your livestock or you farm your plants, the plants farm the biology in the soil. It's really fascinating work. So Dr. James White, Professor James White, excuse me, will be joining us next February. And in January, drum roll, Take it away, Fiona.
And in January, we'll have Professor Thulani Mahalanyane. Sorry if I butchered the name. And Thulani is one of the Africa's acclaimed microbiome experts, and he has received a number of national and international awards. So in August 2016, Thulani received the ISME Ambassador of the Year Award. He's also a previous Fulbright Scholar, and he has been awarded the prestigious T.W. Kambule and STF Award as an emerging researcher in 2015, and also the UP Exceptional Achievers Award in 2019 and 2020 and 2024, and the National Research Foundation Prestigious Award in 2019. And his research has focused almost entirely on understanding the ecology of microbial communities in extreme environments. And these habitats, they include soil microbial communities in the Antarctic dry valleys, the Namib Desert, the human gut microbiome, and is now increasingly focused on the South African geographical strategic regions, such as the Southern Ocean. And he's also a current professor at Stellenbosch University in South Africa, where he's paving the way to map Africa's microbiomes in a hugely ambitious program set to map 1 million samples across humans, soil, animals, and plants. And we will be engaging them on the same. Yeah, so that's Professor Thulani.
He is amazing. He is really amazing. He was a professor in University of Pretoria, and that award that he got in 2019, in 2020, all the way to 2024, every single year he won that award, and then Stellenbosch University took him. He is, if you look at those boxes that you can see there, we're all familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals. This is what struck me when I listened to his presentation. I was introduced to Professor Thulani through a contact that I made at the recent biotech meeting that was held in Nairobi that I'd gone to talk about soil microbiomes. And I met a Dr. Slippers, who had then introduced me to Thulani and said, maybe what you're doing can help these researchers start collecting the data they want to map the African microbiome. I listened to a presentation that he did, and he basically, Africa is in a black box when it comes to biomes anywhere. When you think about sequencing of plants, 800 plants have been sequenced, genomically sequenced on the planet so far. Only 20 of those are in Africa, and only one of them has been sequenced by African scientists. They are some incredibly good scientists, but they're not on the continent. And that one particular plant is a hardy plant in South Africa. It's the proteus. So much has to be done. There's so much that we don't know. What he said about the SDGs, there's SDG against hunger, against protecting water, against protecting things above the land, protecting things in the land. What he basically says is every single SDG is underpinned by the biomes that work within those systems. And we cannot distract, or we cannot ignore that these biomes exist, and we need to study them if we intend to actually move in any direction in delivery of those SDGs. When we look at agriculture, we cannot ignore the soil biome. So I'm really excited that they're going to come to us as speakers. We hope they're not going to be too scientific. We're going to have to prep them properly, Fiona, so that we all understand them. Otherwise, we'll just be there looking at their handsome faces thinking, okay, and then how does that affect me? How does that affect my farm? How does that affect my country? It's all about relevance. So we'll tell them what we're doing, and they will give us presentations that we can understand. Some of their stuff is really complex, and we're not professors, but it's really, really, really good stuff. So that's what's in store for us for 2023. I hope you're all excited. We need to get some women speakers. We would love, all of you have got speakers who you think should be speaking to our community. I'm sure you all know of some. Please forward the names of those individuals to Team iCow, forward us their profiles, and we will reach out to them and see if we can put them into our database of speakers going forward as well. Thank you. So we do this together, right? James, have we got Sammy on audio? Do we have Sammy on audio yet?
Sammy, put up your hand and then I'll unmute you.
Not yet?
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, so what we will do is I will continue sharing then. And the next part that we're going to look at is our soil advocacy classes for January 2024. Part of what we hope to do today was to inspire other people to join the classes. James is going to take us on a rundown on the new course that will start in January 2024. Over to you, James.
Thank you so much for that, Sue. Okay, I want to take this opportunity to welcome all of you to our next year's new class that is starting in January. Onboarding is going on. Kindly express your interest by sending us an email through the email address you can see there. That is james@greendreams.co.ke, or to if you are attending as a friend of anyone here, you can reach out to them and they can refer you to us and we'll add you to the group. What we need from you is just your time. The course is free and it takes 12 weeks. We hold a lesson a week for 1 hour, and probably we do it in the evening from 7 to 8 p.m. So we will require you to sign some of few things. We will send you a commitment document because we need you to commit to taking this course, and we need your total time in class. If you fail to attend 2 consecutive classes in a row, we will kick you out of class, but you will learn to let us know why you will not be attending class. All our courses are online, including graduation. After the course, you will graduate and you will be awarded a certificate of completion. We also have certificates of distinction in our class for those who will do well. So all the tests that you'll be given to do, kindly do due diligence in your revisions and ensure that you pass with a good grade that is above 90%. Thank you so much. I think I'm looking forward to receiving your request starting tonight, but I'll review them from tomorrow. I'll be sending I get your request, when you express interest in joining our soil advocacy, I'll invite you to class. And as you saw the map there, it was really covering only Kenya, but I look forward to seeing the entire world, from UK, US. I saw somebody from Zambia. Thank you so much for joining us. And I want to acknowledge that if you have anyone interested in joining our soil advocacy course, please invite them to join us. Thank you so much. Over to you, Sue.
So thank you for that, James. I'm going to stop sharing now and let's have a look-see. Have we found Sammy? Whilst we're looking for him, somebody says, will recent current graduates join? If you've already joined and you've passed, we're not going to be teaching anything new. So we don't have a new course yet, but we might at a later stage, and we'll let you know. So this is the same thing that you actually, most of you have done. Okay? So that's great. There's somebody who has just said, thank you, Team iCow, for this informative session. I got an invite from one of your students, Karanja Mwangi. I'm looking forward to the next course. We look forward to teaching you, Jacob. Super. Meanwhile, as we are looking, I want you all to scroll down into, well, actually, we can see on the screen, we can see that so many people have written no to dirty carbon credits. That's just fantastic. And if you look at, you go to at the bottom there where it shows participants, you'll see the list of names that are saying no to dirty carbon credits. And I think that's fabulous. Sammy, unfortunately, is having a bad connectivity issue. So I'm afraid we will just have to do with the presentation that we did for Sammy ourselves. And Sammy, we salute you. We recognize you. We recognize your work. We salute the work that you're doing. Actually, all of you. Sammy just sets the bar very high when it comes to community enrollment and getting the community involved. And I'm sure you all agree with me on that. So this is going to bring us to the end now, and I'm going to just share one more screen, and that is a screen that will, we're just going to go from here to here, and we're going to go down. And this is Team iCow that wish you all a fabulous, fabulous World Soil Day. We hope that you've enjoyed this session today. Team iCow, thank you. None of this is possible at all without all of you. You are fantastic. You are the front of the plow that is paving to make room for everybody else in this space of regenerative agriculture. I love you all for that. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go off the screen now to all of us, where we are now all going to be able to unmute our microphones and make a lot of noise and clap our hands and put your cameras on and just go wild. Hey, there are the faces behind the names. Very, very cool. Any of you want to add anything? You want to say anything? Just put your hand up. We'll take 2 speakers towards the end of this, and then we will close down. So, but you got to put your hand up, and there are a lot of you, so you got to put your hand up quickly. We all know that if Tony was here, he'd have his hand up, right? I think his hand is permanently up. I think Tony sleeps with his hand up. He's answering questions all day long. I see people are being shy, and it's been a very long webinar, so maybe we will let you go. Maybe parting shots there from, let's pick on Elizabeth Wangara. Why don't you unmute yourself and give us a parting shot for the day, and then we will all be on our way.
Oh, there was a hand which was up, so I don't know it's for who.
There's a hand up.
Somebody raised up his hand, so you can raise again.
Scholastica's hand was up.
Please unmute. Come on.
Go ahead and speak. Yeah.
Hilda, welcome.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to inform you we are having 2 team leaders from Uganda, and we might have 4 4 groups of youth joining us from in the January class from Uganda. Today we had 2 people, team leaders, Anita and Robert from Uganda.
Thank you so much, Hilda, for that. Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very good. Okay, we're having a little bit of an issue now with mics on and off and everything. Maybe, James, we can ask you to close the meeting. Sorry, guys, it's a bit chaotic with the microphones and scopes. Go ahead, James. You're on mute.
Okay. Thank you so much, team. I want to say bye-bye for today, and I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year 2024. I know I'll be the first one to wish you a Merry Christmas.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
James. Bye.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
guys. Bye.
Bye, Susan.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye. See you all next year.